All right, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us here today on Wednesday, the 21st of September. It's been a busy week, and we've got some more news here to keep the rest of the week entertaining with Kevin McNeil, CEO of EQ Resources, running the Mount Carbine tungsten mine up there in Queensland, who's going to give us an update on the reserve and also a bit of an update on the project and how things are going. I'm going to hand it over to you now, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I know we did a webinar not too long ago, so I'm not going to bore you with some of the background slides, but I thought I would put the information in for investors because we have a significant amount of new investors actually have been coming on the register as of late. So thought we would put some information there. So I'll skim through them just so I'll try not to bore the regular gang. So here's our standard disclaimer. You can read at your leisure. I guess, like we say, big thing that I get asked a lot is that a lot of investors don't understand that we are actually in current production. And I know for those of us that have been following the story, it seems like we talk about it all the time. But anyway, for any new investors out there, we are in production and we've been ramping up continually quarter on quarter, which I'll show you a little bit later. But I think the biggest thing in the project is that, we have secured long-term offtake. And the big thing for me is the de-risking of the overall operation. It's like we've been developing our processing plant and our crushing. And again, I just want to stress that our project is really de-risked. We're currently operating at 79% recoveries in the processing plant. We're doing 1,000 tons a day through the processing plant, and generally somewhere around 1,500 to 2,000 ton a day through the XRT sorters. So overall, we're kind of hitting sort of 2,500 tons of head feed, if you will, going through the processing plant. So we do have a very economic resource that's growing, and I'm going to let Tony speak a little bit on that in a few minutes. But and then we've converted to reserves, which was the stimulus for this presentation. I guess I want to show you also that we have positive market conditions on tungsten going forward. Tungsten's a critical metal, and we'll explain a little bit about that. And certainly on our ESG, we've been making pretty good grounds for a small company up here, both on the social, environmental, safety, and community interaction. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and hope to show you that we do have an experienced team, and we've been developing the guys over the last 2 years to when we hit the open pit, we'll be hitting it running. And last but not least, we do have a beneficial reuse of our sorter waste, which is our quarry products, both from a coarse rock and a sorter waste product as well. So we get fairly good revenues coming off of that. Just a quick update for where we're at on the share. There's just a little bit more information that we've included there. I guess on the board, nothing has changed on the board over the last couple of years. Since I've been here, so we've certainly stabilized management and the board, and as the project marches forward. And that's just a quick snap of the board that most of you would recognize. I guess one of the main features that we have at this project, because it was a historic project, we actually have a paved road that runs right to the project site. Power lines are already installed. We've done that in our phase 1 operation. There's good draw for community. We don't have to have a camp currently. We take from the local communities, and people carpool in, and we draw from as far as Port Douglas, Mossman, and Mariba, Gelatin. So yeah, good water supply as well, and lots of good infrastructure up here on the mining. All the offices, laboratories, everything is in place. This was the original economics on the bankable feasibility study. And what we're doing currently, as part of the updating the reserve study, we've had to we simultaneous did the economics for the reserves and the inputs going into the reserves. And in part of that process, we've been updating the bankable feasibility study, both with the economics and the detail in order to populate the reserves. And so we're really quite excited. I think probably within the next month, we'll be coming out with a new economics around the deposit, showing what the impact of these new reserves will be. We have to formally release it and put it out into the market. One of the numbers that we've been asked as of late is what impact is the CRONIMET portion of the JV. So I've managed to put this into the slide. Now, as we increase into the open pit ore, our joint venture partner doesn't participate into that. And again, we'll speak a little bit later about that, but this shows you our take on the NPV is 105 million. And then, so as it increases, the CRONIMET share will stay the same of the NPV, where ours will increase because of the open pit and underground. So I guess one of the other reasons we just wanted to talk a little bit about our government grant funding. It wasn't in as we went through a change of government, the new government wanted to review the grants and make sure everything was good with them. And they just recently come back to us, as you may have seen the announcement, that they did recommit to the grant. So we are busy working with them on the contracts around that and the drawdown schedule that's appropriate with that. So, so our CapEx, we're funded for the CapEx. As you see, we've been busy developing the project. I'll show you some of the new work as well that we've implemented over the last month or so. Tungsten as a commodity, just for new shareholders, that what we see is tungsten is classed as a critical metal in most Western societies now. And the reason being is that China controls 83% and Russia controls another 4%. Now, if tungsten gets shut off, you've probably seen in some of my previous webinars what effect that could have on the economies of the Western world. Tungsten is critical for that reason, but also its properties. It's next to diamonds, it's the hardest metal that there is, and then it has the highest melting point of any metal. So it's very much in demand. It's been around for 100 years, and it's used, or 150 years, and it's been used in all kinds of applications around the world, military and so on. So it's got a steady demand. It's climbing as per the economies, and we see very, very tight supply currently of tungsten, in particular in the Western world, and as the Chinese mines get deeper. And again, this just shows the decline. This is out of the Wood Mackenzie report. Where is the new tungsten going to be coming from? They're saying there has to be like 3 Mount Carbines brought online every year to meet the demand. We're seeing 2 mines coming offline. And so it's quite a very good dynamics for a price increase in tungsten. So Mount Carbine, as we had said, has been a very historic mine. It goes back to the late 1800s. The major push of this mine was taking place in 1970 through to 85. And the guys had mined the open pit. At that time, they took out about 20 million tons of rock out of the open pit. And then they started a decline that went down about a half a kilometer. They intended to mine it from underground. And so the price of tungsten declined, and then they abandoned that. So the project really had a few fits and starts on the way through, but nothing of any consequence until we got a hold of it. And we've now redone the gravity plant and put in a new crushing circuit. Just the process flow, we have two sources of ore, a 12 million ton low-grade stockpile on the left-hand side, as you see here, and then also open pit ore. Tony's going to talk a little bit more about that. We have, like I said, put in a new primary crushing and screening circuit, enhancing the old quarry circuit. That material gets crushed to -40. The -6 millimeter goes directly to the gravity plant. The +6 to 40 millimeter goes to our 2 XRT sorters that are working like a bomb. The material from that product, so we extract only about 10% of the mass or of the product. So if we put 100 ton an hour in, we come out with 10 tons an hour with 95% of the tungsten in that 10 tons. So we then truck that down to the processing plant, and you'll see that we have a new crushing circuit installed at the gravity plant. The waste from the sorters, because we haven't completely crushed it to bug dust, that goes to our quarry operation, and then the quarry separates it into various sizes and uses it for road bases and concrete aggregates and 18 different products that we have currently. So this is just a little site map. Number one is sort of our office laboratory complex down here. Number two is our processing plant. Number three is over at the quarry. Number four is our XRT sorting plant. Apologies, you can't really see it. 5 is the low-grade stockpile, and number 6 is our exploration targets that we currently have. And you can see why we say there's only 15% of the deposit being mined. As you can see, the depth of the underground that we've done the work on the scoping document to be able to put it underground. This is the development plan that we're currently on. I think what we're going to see is, besides the normal construction, we do plan to do a second phase of western drilling. We've had one of our highest grade holes the furthest to the west of the deposit. I'll let Tony talk a bit more about that. But also we need to drill a few more holes at the top of the deposit to put it into reserves. In resource, we're okay, but we need to put it into reserves. So we're looking at starting the open cut mining. We're looking now probably around the second quarter of this year or the next year coming up. The approval process, we are putting in the approvals very shortly, and then we are expecting those back about 3 months, and that's just an amendment to the existing environmental impact statement that we already have, and that will go forward to positioning of the waste dumps and various activities that we're going to do. We have been engaged with DES for a fair bit of time now, going through the process, so we don't anticipate any issues with that permit. I guess from what we said about our ore sorters, we recently purchased the second ore sorter, and we're seeing the effect of that coming online as we see this quarter production is continuing to ramp up as we go. We think that there's still more room for capacity for ramp up into the next phase. So this TOMRA has both OPEX savings as well as additional CAPEX savings to be able to treat extremely low grade ores and be very environmentally friendly at the same time, because we're not using water and power to crush everything down very, very fine. Again, you can see the concentrate projections that we're up to. We had a record production last month, and that we're probably looking at very similar this month and then ramping up again. We have one issue with our pipeline going down to the processing plant from the new wet plant that's holding back us from going up to 90 ton an hour or 90 tons a month. So we'll look like for the next month or so we'll be at 60, and then when we change the pipeline out to a larger diameter, then we'll be okay at that point. This is the new tertiary crusher for the ore sorter. We've installed this. Again, the guys on site built these conveyors, allowing us to have cost savings, and we brought in a new short head cone crusher. to crush this material to 4 millimeters, and this will be up and operational in the next week or so. And this will also help us reduce OPEX. Again, this was our phase 1 operation here. This is it on the ground. We're looking at the open pit. In this will be our phase stage 2 open pit, and then there'll be a stage 3 as Tony drills a few more holes and puts that into reserve. From a processing plant design, we'll increase into a jaw crushing station, reclaim tunnels. All this is to save operating costs. And then on the far right, this was the overall mine design. You can see after the open pit is depleted, we go into these various stopes and various levels chasing the ore at depth. The ramp up, a lot of you have seen this, would have seen this slide, but we're currently in the 3rd block over here. And when the open pit comes on, you can see the grade difference out of the new reserve. As opposed to the 0.08 that we're currently mining. It's going to go to 0.33, which gives us a very big uplift of concentrate at about the same cost, with the exception of the open pit mining or the hard rock mining. But all the processing costs and all the admin costs will stay the same, just that you have that much more in revenue and that much more in profit as you go forward. So the open pit really gives it a nice kick. And at that note, I'm just going to let Tony Bainbridge take the seat for a couple minutes and talk about the new reserves that are quite exciting.
Thank you, Kevin, and hello to everyone online. I wanted to sort of, you probably heard me a few times talking about the resources and how they've changed at Mount Carbine. I'd like to, for those that aren't technical, to sort of let you know that this is an ongoing process. So all mining companies review their resources reserves yearly, and we're no exception to that. I guess we're at the start of things. We only put our maiden EQR resource out in September last year. We did do a second phase of drilling after that maiden resource, and that came through in March of this year. And subsequently, we've just released in July a new resource figure that's online. Out of those resources, which we primarily focused on getting a lot more indicated resource together. So we actually increased a lot of the inferred up to indicated. We had a very good lift there. We actually found 14% more metal when we did that process. So that's always a good thing here. When we convert from the inferred to indicated, we see an increase in our metal content. And that's principally because of these high grade things that we intersect. Once we drill them out properly, they add a lot of metal to the deposit. Reserves are what's going to be mined, and we've just updated that. And you can see here this figure by 29%. That is actually within the same pit that's in the BFS study that we put out in December. That's what Kevin's saying. We've upgraded principally for 2 reasons. We did do a little bit more drilling around that pit, but also we recognized that there was some 0.26 grade ore. It's lower grade ore, but it sitted around our high grade, and we were able to bring that into the pit. So that 29% increase in our resource for the first few years is welcome. It's a lot more money added in. 263,000 MTUs get added. And it's actually in a fully designed pit now. So we have the pit ready to start. We have all the plans and designs finished. So that's the one we can press the button on. It has remarkably reduced the strip ratio because we brought in a larger, lower grade stuff that the sorters will handle very well. It has reduced our strip ratio from 11:1 down to 3:1. So more metal. The pit's actually a million tons smaller than the one that's in the BFS, so we're anxious to get all that out. These reserves are all the parameters that were designed, and they'll be in this updated bankable study that's coming. So keep watching this space. as Kevin's mentioned, we're still only on stage. This is stage 1 and 2 reserves, and what we're working on is oops, I'll get back to that. This is a little video, and I think you can see the stage 1 in light green being mined there, and then what we will hope to bring to you is a stage 3 pit over the back there, which was in the orange. It's a pretty quick video. Maybe is it worth doing that again? I'm not sure if I go back one. But that's an ultimate pit we're looking at, and some of that pit here is still undefined. If we look at, there we go. We look at where we got to do some more work. I'll show you that on the next slide. We thought we had a lot of it drilled out. If you look at the shape of the ore body here on the left in red, this is only showing the indicated resources that we've drilled. There is a lot of material over here we call an iron duke that's actually inferred, and Kevin showed you a slide of the underground designs we're working on there. If you look at a long section along, this is the pit that we've released, and that's what's going to go into the updated BFS, and it's now 4 years of open cut mining. With a 1 million tonne going down to our processing plant per year. And if you look on the long section along that yellow line, sorry, there's a sensitive mouse here. If you look at the long section here, we've got the white shape here is responding to that pit. And you'll notice a couple of things. Firstly, we've only managed to drill out a deeper part of the indicated. All the area here remains undrilled as yet. So we want to finish that, and as we have veins outcropping on the surface, we want to finish drilling that in and bring on a proper reserve category. So that extra bit here on the left and the western end of the pit, we hope that'll add another significant life, probably similar to what we're looking at now for the first 4 years. You can see in the grey here is what I'm referring to as the patch that's undrilled within that stage 3 pit. So we mine this pit, the strip ratio is down to 3.1, which we're very pleased about. We're getting the sorters to work. I mean, we know the sorters work really well on 0.07 grade. On the low grade dump, we're going to feed them with about a 0.26 lower deposit. So we're pleased that we know that's going to work well. So more metal in the same pit. We've targeted for Q2 start for that pit. Now we've got the full designs, and within the next 12 months we'll have solved this problem and probably release a second update to the reserves and the feasibility. Regards exploration, now this slide's got all the non-drilling and resource areas shown. This area here is what we call the Iron Duke deposit. This area here I'm showing to the west of the pit is what we're trying to extend into the current pit. And you can probably realise that the pit yet may extend to some of these other areas in the future. One of the significant areas we like to go exploring is to continue following this major structure. We call it the South Wall Fault, and we're following that along. We've done geophysics over this area, and we've found that there's a number of shallow intrusives showing up, and we think they're the sources to the tungsten. So we're going to drill them out. The other feature is, of course, like a lot of mines, we have to sterilise where we're going to put some of more waste. So we're going to drill that program. It has a two approach system to it. We think the open cut's going to be around for quite some time, a number of years with continual expansions, continually upgrading the resources. And then at some point we find that the economics will turn to go to underground, as Kevin pointed out. So I think the geology is exciting. We've got plenty of zones to move, and I think you've heard me talk before about we're not too much constrained with tungsten. We just want to get going and get production going, as I'm sure all our shareholders want to see. So I'll leave it there and head back to Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. So there's been a fair number of questions from shareholders. I just wanted to clarify the joint venture structure with CRONIMET. So CRONIMET do pay their half of the share of the cost of the development all the way through it. CRONIMET have been a great partner for us. They manage the offtake. They take the concentrate directly from site. They pay for the shipping of it. They do all the marketing of the concentrate and shipped it globally around the world. And they've been a great partner. So just a little bit of explanation. As we move into the open pit, CRONIMET aren't part of the open pit project as such. So we're displacing the ore that would have come off the low-grade stockpile. So we've agreed in principle to compensate CRONIMET for the tungsten units or profit that would come off of the low-grade stockpile and the tailings that were economic in the bankable feasibility study. And over a period of time, we would compensate them even if we're not running the low-grade stockpile up to a point of when the bankable feasibility economics says that they would have received the amount of money or profit that they would have gotten out of the low-grade stockpile. So that's really where we're at with a joint venture at current. It allows us to mine our high-grade ore, and for EQ Resources, where we would be making out of the low-grade stockpile maybe $350,000 a month, which would go up to something like $5 million a month. So that's the difference. So we need to compensate CRONIMET for their loss of non-production off the low-grade stockpile over the same period. So this is where we're at with a joint venture deal. So there's information on this slide. Please take your time and go through it. And if anybody has any questions, as always, my door is always open to shareholders. So please feel free to contact us. We have been working with some really good partnerships. We are fully a believer in partnerships. These are some of the major partnerships, and certainly with the government, taking it from the METS Ignited processing grant through the AMGC and into the federal government grant that we just recently received a flow on of this year. So it's been a really good project. The other significant partners are Sandvik and Goldings, Tomra as well, that have been key in the technical aspect of it. And then certainly CRONIMET and PlotLogic and Morgan's, obviously. So on the quarry, as we've been developing a new business, as you'll see on the far left-hand side, some of these big rocks that we're taking out of the low-grade stockpile that we don't crush, that are extra. We have a 10,000-ton contract currently that we're trucking down to Yorkeys Knob, close to Cairns, and providing them with the materials. So the quarry keeps ticking away on contracts, so it's doing okay. And we recently did a boat ramp at Newell Beach, which you would have seen as well. So just in summary, I guess the big thing I want to say about this project, I think there's some projects that, start afresh and they greenfields projects, and you fund, and then you find they don't always work as they should work. I think the benefit we have is a brownfields project. We're scaling up. We have the team in place, all the systems in place, the safety, the ESG. So, we have a fantastic resource. We have a great processing plant. So we're really de-risked and funded and ready to go to the next stage into the open pit, which will give us significant revenue and profit for the shareholders. And on that note, I will leave it to you. If anybody has any questions, Peter, I'm not sure if there was any online, or if anybody has any questions, just feel free to contact myself.
Yeah, terrific. It's a very comprehensive presentation, Kevin. I think any shareholder in a junior mining company could only dream of being where you are at the moment. And that one of those last slides showing all your strategic partnerships, the associations, the government input, and here you are about to go into larger scale production with the open pit. And that slide on 21 really shows that very clearly. And just a few questions have come through. I'm going to summarize some of them. How are you seeing any impacts from global supply chain, given various industries at the moment are struggling, but you seem to be maintaining your schedule fairly well?
Yeah, maybe that's a two-stage. We are like certain supply chain issues on like conveyors, for instance. We ended up building them ourselves on site with local contract boiler makers, and the phase one conveyors are working brilliantly. So we, I guess, like I said, it's something that I'm quite proud of. Our team is able to pull that together. It has been significant. From a tungsten point of view, what we are seeing is that one of our major off-takers was just recently on site, and like the CRONIMET sell the tungsten to, and they were expressing like how tight the tungsten market is, Peter, from a supply chain of tungsten backwards, and how tight it is, and to the point where they were really saying, look, how do we get extra production sooner than later, right? Because it is that tight, and their customers are pushing them. So I think we're in a good space when it comes to that part of it.
Terrific. Funding, 22.5 million from all those various parts into your funding for the project. That's a pretty good position to be in. Does that mean your cash flow up until production is going to be fairly stable as well? Your cash flow requirements?
Yeah, we're certainly, as we've ramped up production, it's always been like integrating various components within the processing plant as well. So sometimes we have to stop and integrate and tie in electrical, or do this, or put in a high line. So it is tricky maintaining production, and but yeah, we're fully funded into the production of the open pit. The issue that we have, certainly with that 6 million government funding, we were expecting it in July. So that's why the schedule, you may have picked up, has slipped out a little bit, because we haven't received any of that funding yet that was scheduled to be here in July. So they have recommitted to that, and so we're pushing forward a little harder now on the development phase. So that's been that's part of it. But we are really doing well with the money that we have received to date, and putting in the various pieces as per the feasibility study.
Slide 21, Kevin, a good one to possibly leave viewers with. At the beginning of that ramp up into some significant production and higher grade, that must be very pleasing for you to be able to deliver that slide, and then be preparing to go into that next stage.
Yeah, that's certainly where it's at, Peter, is really hitting the ground running with that high grade ore coming in from the open pit compared to what we have been running, and the first year in particular, you will see this coming out in the, help me, Tony, was it in the reserve statement, the different years of mining, or? Yes. Yeah, it is in that, so I'm able to disclose. But the first year in particular, Peter, is a very, very low strip ratio, and the difference from the feasibility cash flows to the by taking that low grade, it allows us to get a lot of ore in the early years, like before we have to start pushing back the walls. We're able to get into that high grade ore on the bottom of the pit floor and take out almost 700,000 tons at a very low strip ratio.
And all on the BFS being written only on 18% of the overall project resource too.
Yeah, 14%, and I think it's even gone down now, Tony, as he's increased the global resources a bit more. So yeah, it will push out, this project will push out to the west. There'll be additional resources there and reserves that we'll be able to extend the open pit for a couple, 3 more years. We will get underground on this thing and drill from underground and define some more resource and reserves from underground. So it's really a big development story for the future.
Thanks, Kevin, and thanks, Tony. A pretty good update and some great messages there for shareholders. If there's any other questions, please send them through and we'll get them straight through to Kevin. He's always happy to speak to shareholders. Thanks, gentlemen, and have a great weekend.
Great, guys. Thanks, eh?